Welcome back. Somebody alerted me that the economic value added video that I had previously recorded did not have any audio, so I'm going to have to re-record it. I do have a sore throat, so the audio on this might be a little quiet, but I just want to make sure you guys get something to help you kind of start preparing for exam 4. So I apologize in advance. Economic value added, essentially what it's doing is it's adjusting your net income to eliminate any U.S. GAAP distortions. Now you might say, oh, well, U.S. GAAP is what type of distortions could it really have? Because the whole purpose is really to make sure that net income is really showing exactly what the company's doing or how they're financially performing. But there are some things actually that could definitely have an effect on a current period net income that actually is producing revenues in the future. So let's start and just kind of think about what are some costs that we expense right away that may help generate revenues in the future. So we'll kind of do this like Dora the Explorer kind of fashion. So what are some costs that we definitely expense in the current period that generate revenues in the future, or that may generate revenues in the future? And you can go ahead and pause this and kind of think about it a little bit. So the big one that is actually discussed in our chapter is advertising. There have been studies shown that advertising can actually help to generate revenues 2 to 3 years or even more after the actual expenditure has been made. So it is possible. What are you chewing on? Stop that. It is possible that there is some advertising that is currently being expensed in the current period that isn't necessarily reflecting the true expenses of the company. So with economic value added, what we do is we take out a portion of those advertising expenses and then we proportionately put them into the years that we think they are helping to generate revenues for those years. Try thinking of another one. There's one other really big one that we usually talk about while we're in class. The other one that usually comes to mind when I think about economic value added is research. Research and development. So research and development, according to US GAAP, for almost all research and development costs, we're supposed to expense them in the period that they are incurred. However, as we know, research and development can definitely generate revenues in the future. So if we were using an economic value added model, we might want to go ahead and push some of those revenues or those research and development costs into future periods where the relevant revenues are being generated due to those research and development costs. We might think about this a lot for things like pharmaceuticals. So we might decide that we want to go ahead and adjust research and development costs based on the revenues that we think they might produce in the future, or we might be doing this, retrospectively, once those revenues have been actually incurred. So we might want to go back and adjust research and development. So it's not just being expensed in the year it's being incurred, but it's being expensed in the year where the relevant revenues are being actually earned. Now, let's think about this from a principle perspective. Those principles that you learned in theory, Accounting 1, also accounting information systems, we talked about them a little bit. What principle does EVA really reflect? That principle is actually the matching principle. That principle where we want our expenses to match our revenues. So the matching principle is actually going to help us ensure that the revenues that we're showing and the expenses we're showing are in the appropriate periods, and it's giving us a much better look at what net income is. All right, so this is where I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. Next on our list is we have our investment bases for ROI. So we have some really cool things to consider here, and it's kind of fun because it goes back to like financial accounting and understanding some of those basics, and we talk about principles a little bit more, but I actually want to do this on paper. So part 3 and part 4 I'm going to do on paper, so I'll stop this video here for the handout. All right, keep up the hard work, guys. Happy studying.